All right, everyone, welcome to our Wellness Warrior Call tonight, our Monday night call, where we love to have guests come on and even some of you to come on and share your wisdom. And tonight we have a super special guest that I'm excited about. And so if you guys can just mute your lines, that would be awesome. And we'll get started here. So tonight I'm going to introduce our host for tonight. And that is the one and only Robert Arthur and his cute Joy in the background right there, his honeybee, who he has been in love with for the past, how many years? 26, I think. Is it 26 years? Joy,
actually, today is our 24th wedding anniversary. So
24th wedding anniversary. Okay. So Robert is a platinum founder here at Zalevo. Happy anniversary, by the way. And he has been in network marketing for this profession for the past 25 years. And he was with his past company for 17 years, and where he and his wife, Joy, led a team of over 20,000 entrepreneurs, and they earned multiple millions of dollars. And they are the servant leaders to the highest degree. I can't say enough wonderful things about them. We weren't even in the same team, financially connected, and we became so close. Just because we are like-minded, we're faith-based, we have the same core values, which led us to be here in this company where we are today. Robert is a massage therapist and outdoor mentor, leading groups in outdoor activities and adventures. He's super adventurous. He's driven to empower and uplift others. And we are excited to have him host our call tonight and to welcome and introduce our guest wellness warrior onto the call tonight. So Robert, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Miss Jill. Who else loves Jill Berth Iverson? We love you, Jill.
Thank you. We love you.
Yeah, you and Kathy both. Thanks for being the dynamic duo to make this all possible. You guys had so much grit as you helped launch this whole venture and community. So thank you, Jill and Kathy. And remember the VIP, I love doing this. So reach out with your right hand. Come on, guys, reach out. And now bring it over your left shoulder and pat yourself on the back. You're the VIP. The VIP on the call is every single one of you beautiful people on this call, because you're in that small percentile of our population who is here to learn and to step out. You could be doing anything right now. So thanks for being on this call with us tonight. And we're definitely in for a treat. We have a gentleman who brings so much passion, so much authenticity, so much integrity to the journey he's been on through the years. Joy and I met this individual roughly, 18 years ago now?
Long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago. And what's evident when you meet this individual, guys, is Dr. Dennis Harper. He's been on this journey of discovery, and he was very open. You'll hear in a moment more of his journey from traditional, med school, entering the practice, and you're about to hear some of the catalysts and why he became this unique animal, meaning traditional medical doctor who began to also incorporate alternative or complementary or integrative medicine. It's called different things, but the point is he began to see, wow, this is how we can support the body from the inside out to really address the root cause of illness and disease versus masquerading it. So anyway, so Dr. Dennis Harper, 35 years now in practice, and oh my goodness, we could spend the next half hour going through his journey. I'll just touch on a couple major points. One, some of his previous professional memberships: Utah Medical Association, Utah Osteopathic Medical, American Osteopathic Association, American College for the Advancement of Medicine, Federation of State Medical Boards. He served on the board at a high level with the previous venture, which is just shy of $1 billion company. He's currently on the advisory board now with Zalevo, and came on board with Zalevo not that long back, just about, I think Dr. Harper and I, we're nailing it down to about February. So only a few months here on board. And my goodness, has it been one heck of a ride in the last few months with our beautiful community. He's currently residing in Saratoga Springs. Am I saying that right, Doctor? Yeah, Saratoga Springs, Utah, and beautiful place on the planet there. He's currently has a very highly successful practice, again, integrating this integrative, holistic, working with the body, and always open to learning and striving for that next level of how he can truly serve other individuals to step into a heart space. As I mentioned earlier, as Jill said, Jill, thank you for saying that. He truly is a servant leader. And it shows in not just what he says, but how he lives life, much less pursues his beautiful profession. So Dr. Harper, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm thoroughly going to enjoy being here tonight.
Yes, we are too. So thank you for being here. Maybe one place to start is, I'm sure you would agree, Dr. Harper, it's rare in this day and age, and has been for several decades, to find a traditionally educated medical professional, medical doctor coming into his profession, and then seeing some of the turns you made. I would love to maybe start back a number of years ago when you first launched your practice, and it was traditional, but then maybe we start right where we talked about the catalyst earlier today. So I'd love you to kind of rewind the clock for us a little bit.
Okay, well, I started practice in 1986 in a little town in Stockton, Missouri. I'm sorry about my voice. I've got a little something going on there. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe going through puberty. I'm not sure. But anyway, I practiced traditional medicine for the first 3 years. And during that third year, I had a patient come in and tell me, she was also a member of my church, and she said, Dr. Harper, every time you give somebody an antibiotic, you need to give them some acidophilus. And I just kind of talked to her and I said, Cindy, you're over 300 pounds and you're eating nuts and twigs, and I'm 155 pounds, 165 pounds, and I'm eating Twinkies every day for lunch. So I don't really see the correlation here between what you're trying to tell me. And so she said, well, I'm going to let you treat me then. I said, well, it's about time.
This is Dr. Harper.
I'm sorry?
It's okay. Yeah, we had to mute a line there. Go ahead, Dr.
Oh, okay. And so she said, okay. So we did some blood work on her, found out that she had a lot of problems going on. And so I started to treat her. And for the next month and a half to 2 months, every time I offered her some type of medication to help with one of her conditions, she had major adverse reactions to it. And after about 2 months, I realized, my goodness gracious, the only reason this woman's even alive must be because of the nuts and twigs that she was eating. Because every time I tried to do anything, I was putting her into some dangerous areas. So that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Then I had a doctor, Dr. Dennis Remington, that sent me 3 books. And I told him I'd read them, even though when I got the books, I thought, oh gosh, this guy's a quack. I don't want to, but I told him I'd read these books, so I had to read these books. It was Back to Health Through Yeast Control. And after I read that book, I had a patient that came into my office that really, I considered her to be fairly crazy. We tried psychiatric intervention, we tried antidepressants, we tried pretty much everything we could think of, and nothing was helping. She would come in and she would say, Dr. Harper, how are you today? And I'd say, oh, I'm okay. I'm feeling good. How about you? She said, oh, I am so depressed. And I thought, this little lady's giving me the heebie-jeebies, because her affect and her questions were completely different. I mean, she appeared to be very happy, but she was really, really depressed. I thought, what is going on here? It's almost like you're possessed. So she came in one time and she said, I think I know what's wrong with me. I thought, well, good, because I don't. And she said, I think I have an overgrowth of yeast in my system. And I said, well, you know what? I just barely read this book. I'll be happy to go down this road with you. Well, we went down this road of the Candida diet, and within a month and a half, this woman was absolutely normal. And I thought, that is pretty strange. But then this was her therapy. And so that's why she got better. She chose this therapy. But at least I was open enough to continue to try it on some of my other problem patients. And all of a sudden, I started seeing my patients getting better, the ones that were troubled patients. And then I started having doctors around my area sending me patients to be on this new therapy. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is taking place here? So it started opening my eyes that there was other things than just traditional medicine that could help people. And one thing you have to understand is that as a physician, we're kind of like magicians. Person comes into our office, patient says, okay, this is what I've got. So we reach down into our little black bag and we pull out this and go, hey, you like that? And we see what happens. And then after a while of keep trying and pulling little tricks out of our bag, we run out of tricks. And so the more tricks you have in your black bag, the better physician you're going to be. And so I added a whole bunch of new tricks when I started getting into complementary medicine. And I ended up all of a sudden changing over a 3-year period of time from doing traditional first to doing complementary first. And if the complementary didn't work, then I would go in and start using traditional medications and things like that. So that's kind of how I got involved with this.
And you mentioned, truth be told, there was some kickback from your peers.
Oh, yes. I started using this in the emergency rooms. I started telling patients what to do. And all of a sudden, my physician friends stopped kind of talking to me. And then a person in my church who happened to be what we call a stake president, he brought me into his office. He said, Dennis, don't go down this road. I've seen too many physicians go down this road and they never come back. Well, he said, now I'm saying this as a friend, not as your leader. So I thought, okay, good. Because I have to go with what I see works, not what I was taught. I mean, I spent $250,000 on getting trained, and I was essentially shelving that to go in a completely new direction, which I had to learn completely from the ground up all over again. And it was pretty amazing. And quite frankly, very rewarding, because I ended up getting more hugs in the first 6 months of doing complementary medicine than I did 3 years before.
Well, that's always a beautiful thing, even from a reserved, maybe a little more introverted medical professional. So
I was pretty introverted. That's right. My wife was not happy. Trust me, she was not happy at all. It took years for her to see kind of what I was doing and get behind me.
Wow. How many of us are glad that Dr. Harper had the courage to kind of break that mold, if you will?
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, you too, Dr. Harper. Well, and so I'm trying to put the math together. So we met you about maybe 13, 14 years into that journey, I guess, with a previous venture. And you obviously had integrated so much of that and applying that for years by then. So, and also you mentioned, we didn't talk about this on the pre-brief, but many of you, has anybody heard of the DSHEA Act? Yeah, Dr. Harper, you were instrumental in that. So I would love for you to maybe for just a minute, touch on why that was kind of pivotal and why it was a priority for you.
Well, it was back in 1990 or 1991. I can't remember exactly the year, but the FDA came out with a set of rules, proposed rules to regulate supplements. And at that time, they hadn't approved.
Okay, sorry about that. Dr. Harper, if you can hear me, you're muted again. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I must have pushed the wrong button there.
I think I accidentally muted you when I was trying to mute someone else. I apologize.
I think you're like my wife.
Yeah, look out.
Feel free to do that anytime. I step somewhere, you feel free to mute me.
No.
Okay, rewind like 10 seconds. Okay.
I forget where was I?
The question was around the DSHEA Act, and just touch on that first so we can kind of get some perspective on that.
Well, the FDA was about to regulate supplements completely out of existence. And so I read their proposed rules and I realized, oh, this is not good at all. So myself, Ray Howard, and then another physician who didn't want to have his name brought out, we went kind of secretly and met with Senator Hatch and told him what was going on with the FDA rules. And he said, you know what, I'll be happy to draft the legislation, but you are going to be fighting against the most powerful lobby in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And so it's going to have to be a grassroots movement that would take place. And so over the next 4 years, it took almost 4 years to get that bill through, but finally it was approved. And the DSHEA Act essentially protected supplements from literally being regulated out of existence.
Once again, a big thank you. Yeah, let's give some movement or some energy or something for Dr. Harper's role.
Hey, I'm good. Let's just keep rolling. Let's get going.
Hey, yeah, let's keep going. Okay, so Dr. Harper, why? Let me ask the why question just a moment. We titled this call tonight, creating vibrant health, radical health, vibrant health from the inside out. And then we said how literally one system could really help support, if you will, these different maybe challenges or different areas of the body. So tonight we're literally going to kind of cruise through those at kind of a higher speed. So my first question, Dr. Harper, why get behind a system versus a one product wonder is one of my lead-in questions here before we tackle the.
In the 31 years that I've been practicing, what did I say? 35 years that I've been practicing, I have yet to find one product that works for everybody all the time. It's never happened. I don't believe it ever will happen. And there's some good reasons behind that. And do we want to talk about those reasons right now?
Yeah, why don't you share with us a couple of those reasons, and we'll hop into the 6 areas.
Okay, the biggest reason has to do with the genetic variability that every single person on this world has. If you take the genetic variability to see how unique your body is, you go 4 times 4, 10 million times, and that produces a number that is so large that I'm not really sure how long it is, because I've come up with 6 zeros to an inch. I've come up with 18 miles. I had a math major come up with 32 miles long. That's how unique your body is. It will never, ever, ever be reproduced again. You are absolutely unique. So you have your own little set of biochemistry going on inside your body. And so that's why there's never going to be one product that's going to work for everybody. But with a system, it kind of helps with that a lot. And I think that's what you're going to bring up next, right?
Yes, sir, for sure. And so with your permission, guys, sit tight here. So if you go to any of our Zalevo, like our main website, our main online portal, what do you see? You see 6 different focal points, if you will, and they range from gut health, healthy weight loss or weight management, the key word being healthy, dealing with stress. We talk about full spectrum, good balanced nutrition. We talk about supporting the whole fasting process and journey, which is amazing benefits. And then we also talk about sustained, once again, healthy energy in the body. So guys, with your permission, Dr. Harper and I are going to touch on each of these focal points, attempt to bring it to life for you and keep it practical. So the first one we're going to tackle, Dr. Harper, is the one centered around the digestive system, around gut health. So I know you and I both chuckled at this, but the lead-in question is, what does a healthy gut look and feel like? And you got a kick out of that question, but I'd love to get your comment.
Well, a healthy gut doesn't have a lot of bloating. Okay, that's one thing. And obviously, if you have bloating, you're not going to feel very good. If every time you're eating something, you're bloating, that's an indication that you're having a problem. So you should be able to eat and realize that, yes, I've eaten, but that should pretty much be the core of it. And one of the things that you see is you have to have the right type of bacteria growing in your digestive system. Right now, microbiologists I think they've found over 700 different species. And by no means is that a complete list. They're still finding new all the time of different microbes that are in our gut. And so they have actually talked about that microbiome as being the 3rd brain in our body. Now, that sounds a little weird. Obviously, our first brain is up here in our head. The second brain is considered to be our digestive system because it secretes so much serotonin. It has so many serotonin receptors there. And then the 3rd brain has to do with how the bacteria or the microorganisms in our digestive system actually send out signals that affect our body. which is so bizarre. It's just like, wow, that is so weird. So that's why it's so terribly important to have a good, healthy gut. And of course, we've already discovered how to have a good, healthy gut, but that's why it's important.
So affects the hormonal balance, especially serotonin, and I'm assuming dopamine as well. And then it sends out signals to the body. And my goodness, all from this environment.
Yes.
down in our gut. Wow.
Yes, and you have to understand that what changes the bacteria in our gut has to do with what we ingest. Certain foods will actually cause a different group of bacteria to grow. It'll change the pH in our stomachs. It will, and in the small and large intestines. And so it goes on to show that the terrain of our digestive system determines what kind of bacteria grows. So we need to have a good terrain, but we also need to seed it with good bacteria as well. Because if you don't have good bacteria to start with, you're not going to be able to grow it.
So on the practical side, obviously we're going to touch on some reasons why our system provides some of this good bacteria and even some of the enzyme support. So just even outside of our Zalevo system, what are some practical, a couple to-dos as far as eating habits, food choices?
Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, as you know, I got started with the yeast-free diet. Well, were we really treating yeast at that time? I don't know. But the yeast-free diet tells you no simple sugars. Okay. Well, that's pretty much everybody understands. Simple sugars right now are not a really good idea for us. As a matter of fact, 200 years ago, we were consuming approximately 8 pounds of sugar per person per year, and now we're upwards of 150 pounds of sugar per person per year.
Dr. Harper, can you say that again, please?
Yes. About 200 years ago, let me get my microphone a little closer. About 200 years ago, we were consuming 8 pounds of sugar per person per year.
Okay, 8 pounds, yeah.
8 pounds, and now it's 150 pounds of sugar per person per year. Now, it's not because we're putting it on our cereal. It's because it's in every food you buy in the grocery store practically, because they found out that sugar is addictive. So if you're going to give an addict something, you want to give them what they're addicted to. So they are increasing the amount of sugar that's in the product so that we like the products.
Wow, and we'll talk about, we could do a whole call on sugar, couldn't we? And the implications of that. Okay, so obviously there's other practical tips from white flour and all the different chemicals and everything else. So besides, we've got so much ground to cover here. So we're gonna keep it at that. So you're thinking in your mind and your experience, 35 years now. So the simple sugars is one big area to run away from.
Oh, absolutely. You need to keep in fact, all of your carbohydrates, you should keep your carbohydrates low and try to eliminate simple sugars as much as possible.
Okay.
Even fructose will increase insulin resistance. So it's like, you have to be careful even with how much fruit you're consuming. So you need to be very, very aware of what you're consuming every day, because it will literally affect the bacterial growth that's inside of our digestive system, and it will produce something called insulin resistance, which is a major problem.
Yeah, and we've done calls. In case you're wondering, if this is new for you tonight, we've done calls specifically on insulin resistance and insulin, and the opposite, the antithesis was of insulin sensitivity, which is the goal. So, Dr. Harper, a practical tie-in before we move on to healthy weight loss. One more practical tie-in to our Zalevo system when it comes to gut health.
Well, we have two products, as you well know, and they're both designed to help our digestive system function more appropriately. In fact, one is actually designed to help with weight control, which the bacteria, the TRIM, has been shown with studies that it actually tends to reduce fat. So that's kind of an interesting situation as far as weight control, but you can't just rely on that by itself. You need also to make sure what you're putting into your body is also going to work with the bacteria that you're taking on a daily basis.
Yeah, good point. And thank goodness, even our Ultra 30 has so many of those digestive enzymes, the pro and prebiotics. So we're very much targeting the gut health. with our system as well, along with healthy choices. So speaking of that segue, I know one big, pardon the pun, but big passion of yours is the rising crazy tide of obesity. And one of our obviously focus markets is healthy. Healthy is the key word, weight loss or weight management, Dr. Harper. So one of my lead-in questions, what does healthy and sustainable kind of weight loss look like? What does that look and feel like? What's the visual for us?
I can give you that in one word. It's a label. And I'm being really serious about that. It's not just, it's so true, because what you're looking at with unhealthy weight loss, how many people out there have seen diets where what they're taking people down to 600 calories? I mean, good heavenly days, your body cannot function on that. And as you stay on low calorie diets like that, what takes place is you get something called a feast or famine mode that starts in your body, which means you've just lowered your basal metabolic rate down to where you can't lose weight. There was a study that was done many, many, many years ago where they took people, they put them on a low calorie diet, and sure enough, they lost weight. And then when they put them back on the normal diet that they were doing before, they gained all the weight back plus more.
Right.
And then at the same time, they took another group and they fed them more calories than what they were normally getting. Okay. And sure enough, their weight went up. But when they went back to their regular diet, guess what happened? Their weight went right back to the same rate. So the same weight that they had before. So it's like, oh, what just happened here? They didn't lower their basal metabolic rate. So their weight went right back down. But the people that were on low calorie diets, they changed their basal metabolic rate, which means you're turning the light bulb down. Okay. And so you're not going to get the same amount of light out of that light bulb when you turn that rheostat down, because it's just not possible. So, and can you fix it? Yeah, you can fix it, but it takes a while.
Wow. So one of the big things to avoid when it comes to unhealthy weight loss solutions is whatever lowers the basal metabolic rate, run from that. To avoid
It's a
that.
bad idea. It's
Bad
clearly
idea.
a bad idea.
And as far as to do, what's a couple practical, again, tie-ins to our system? Why are we, you said the one word was Zalevo. So can you summarize that for us in a couple minutes?
Well, sure. Yeah. Obviously, we've talked about nutrition here for a while. Zalevo has developed a combination of nutrition that's literally full spectrum. And when I talk about full spectrum, you're looking at the micro, the macronutrients. And of course, when we're talking about those, we're talking about trace minerals, the regular minerals. We're talking about carbohydrates, proteins, fats, antioxidants, adaptogenic herbs. The whole complex of what your body needs is there with Zalevo. And it's not in a high calorie, it's not in a sugar base, which you say, oh my goodness, how long have we seen shakes out there for old people that are just loaded with sugar? I mean,
for old people, hey, hang on there.
I'm one of those old people.
Yeah, so yeah.
I know they've been around for 30 years. And it's deplorable to think that they're giving small amounts of macro and micronutrition, but a large amount of sugar in those shakes. And yet they're buying them by the caseloads. So yeah. With Zalevo, you're not getting any of that. You're not getting the sugars that you normally see in a lot of diets. And so it's such a complex system, but simple to use. Okay. Wow. You have to give Kirsty a lot of credit here.
Wow. If you're new to the call, Kirsty Cody is our director of product development, and she's the one that's pulled together this incredible world-class team, including Dr. Harper. So that's who Dr. Harper is referring to. And we've done calls. By the way, just a little a side note, next Monday night, our guest speaker is Kirsty Cody, speaking about moms and kids' health. It's going to be an amazing call. So anyway, Dr. Harper, one of the questions that just came across the chat from beautiful Miss Kathy Horn, just a general question, what do you consider like low carbs for the typical person looking to stay healthy, maybe keep their lean body mass? How would you define?
Once again, we're talking about generalities here, okay?
Right.
And everybody has to start listening to their bodies. This is very important. We talked about the blood type diets earlier. or type O's are meat eaters and type A's are not meat eaters. And so you kind of look at all these things, but the idea is listen to your body. But as far as carbohydrates, I recommend no more than 40% of a meal in carbs and as little simple carbohydrates as possible. So in fact, the Zone diet came out, gosh, when was that? 1993, I think, when the Zone diet came out, and his was no more than 600 calories per meal. And of those 600 calories, no more than 40% carbs. And he didn't care whether they were simple or not. I do. I would just stay away from the simple carbs. But I actually would even like to see that lower. I'd like to see the good fats higher, the proteins higher, and the carbohydrates even lower than 40%.
I love it. So that some of that program, some of those ratios made sense. But again, listen to the key word. I heard you mention this in the pre-brief many times, Dr. Harper. Listen to our body. Listen to our body. Yes. Adjust. Listen again. Adjust. Tweak. Listen to our bodies. Those are, Dr. Harper drove that home really heavily on the pre-brief, guys. So make a big note of that. Speaking of listening to our bodies, a beautiful segue into this next area of focus. It's about stress. And I even posed a question to Dr. Harper, and he laughed again out loud. I said, Dr. Harper, what is healthy stress? I'd love to get your reaction to that question.
There is no healthy stress.
Yeah.
That's why I look forward to going to heaven. So there's no stress. But then we kind of decided that there's two types of stress here. And you're looking at physical stress or mental stress. Now, physical stress, when you're exercising, you're bound to have physical stress, and that's good for our bodies. Our bodies like physical stress sometimes, not too much physical stress, but physical stress. But mental stress is never good unless you're trying to accomplish a goal. If you're goal oriented or you've got something, I mean, if you're goal oriented, you still need to be very, very careful because you can drive yourself crazy. But if you have a goal to get done, okay, let's work with that and let's get that goal done. But don't make it to where every day you've got goals that you have to accomplish. Otherwise, you're a worthless individual. That does not work. That is a major amount of mental stress and will cause your body unbelievable grief.
Wow. I think you're pretty adamant and passionate about that area there.
I'm sorry, was I coming over the top on that?
I love, Joy laughed out loud when you said you'll become a worthless.
Absolutely worthless.
You'll become a worthless. And I'm assuming by that you meant that you become unable to really contribute to the world around you. You're worthless.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So practical tie-in again to Zalevo, again around stress.
Practical tie-in with Zalevo. Oh my gosh, the Fortitude 85. I'm sure all of you guys are probably taking the Fortitude 85, but the adaptogenic herbs that are in there are designed to help our bodies deal with stress. Okay, any type of stress, whether it's physical or mental, doesn't make any difference. They've been proven to help with stress. And we're not talking about the adaptogenic herbs has been around since, golly, I think the 50s or 60s is when the Russians were using them.
Yeah.
And of course, the Russians at that time, none of you guys are old enough, but the Russians at that time were cleaning our clocks in the Olympics. And we couldn't understand why. And because literally they were taking golds everywhere. It was like, what are we doing here? And it wasn't until probably 10 or 15 years later that we found out that it was literally a Russian secret. They were absolutely not allowed to even discuss the adaptogenic herbs that they were using on their athletes. And once it got out, all of a sudden, more and more and more athletes started using them. And so, okay, now all of a sudden it became much more even playing field. But the adaptogenic herbs are absolutely wonderful for dealing with stress in a physical or mental.
And just in a simple layman's visual, if somebody asked you, Dr. Harper, what is an adaptogen? How would you answer that in a less technical term? What's your simple definition?
Well, this is the way I believe, okay? It's kind of having a bunch of little carpenters running inside your body fixing stuff. Is that simplistic enough?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so they're fixing stuff that breaks down or needs maintenance or needs
Right.
support. Okay. All right, so it's supporting our different body functions and systems all over the place. And
Yeah,
so
we're not looking at just one area. We're just looking at total body to where it helps your body, your entire body deal better with stress.
yeah, and through the years, for those on the call list, just so you know this, Dr. Harper and many of us have dealt with adaptogens for years. I'm assuming even before our previous venture, Dr. Harper,
Yes.
you were bringing them into people's lives. So, and in some cases, so many cases, it was called either the happy shot or the happy pill for obvious reasons.
Well, now let's just talk about the adaptogenic herbs for a second, because this is kind of important. This goes back to listening to your body again, because some people, when they take the adaptogenic herbs, it kind of wakes them up, gives them a little bit more energy. They accomplish more during the day. Other people, it puts them to sleep.
Right.
So you have to find out how it works for you. And for me, I can actually take them both times and not have a problem because it seems to help both ways. But for some people, it's either one or the other. And so once again, listen when you're taking that to what happens with your body.
Listen to your body. Just had a beautiful comment from Mint. Thanks, Mint. I explain it as a supplement that helps the brain make better chemistry for the activity that it's dealing with. So I love it.
Well, we don't have any proof of that, but I have no problems with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Compliance wise, yeah, but again, overall, it helps our body and supports the body functions. How's that? Yeah, we got to always be careful. We always want these products around for our great grandkids, guys. So
Exactly.
Thank you. So that leads into, there was a phrase that you were really making sure we get the point of listening to our body again. And that phrase was full spectrum nutrition. I would love for you to address maybe a concern you had with it, and then, but how we really came around to the answer as far as how we're delivering that with Zalevo.
Okay, full spectrum nutrition is essentially looking at the micronutrients, which are considered to be the minerals or the trace minerals, and the macronutrients, which are considered to be the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates. And then, of course, we're also adding antioxidants in there. We're adding the adaptogenic herbs, and I'm missing something here. I forget. But what it's designed for, it's not designed for one organ system. It's not designed for two organ systems. It's designed for total body restoration. And that's why we have so many things involved with the Zalevo products, because we're not addressing just a small area of your body. We're trying to address the entire body. Oh, the amino acids. I didn't even talk about the amino acids. The amino acids are an unbelievable blend. I mean, the things that those amino acids do, well, we could talk about leucine as far as muscle mass building, but we have 4.3 grams of leucine in the whey protein, which is the threshold for building muscle is 2.5 grams. So we have 4.3 grams, which means you're way above that level to where you can then start generating muscle mass building.
Yeah, and we find that similar ratio, whether it's in our plant-based or the whey-based shake. We have an incredible, beautiful array of aminos in either shake. So
in the plant-based, I think we have about 2.6 grams of leucine. So it's still over the threshold.
I love it. And you did talk about, I know in our pre-brief, we talked about what's the opposite of balanced nutrition. And we talked about some of the imbalanced ways that we think we're getting a healthy meal and it ends up being so just nutrient deficient. I'd love for you to touch on that for a moment.
Okay, most of our food is nutrient deficient. If you're using canned food, you've already lost 80 to 90% of the nutrition that was in the original. Now, as far as just having things growing out of the earth, we've already lost a tremendous amount of nutrition. You guys have all seen studies showing that one apple 50 years ago, you now have to eat 6 apples. And I'm just making these things up, so don't hold me to those figures. But that's what we're seeing, is that the nutrition is literally we don't have the same earth that we used to have. Okay, and this is because of pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers, which tend to kill the micronutrients that are generated by the entire life forms that live underneath the ground. And so when you get rid of those life forms, and within 2 years, sometimes just by using fertilizers and pesticides, you literally have sterile ground, which means you can't make more nutrients for the plants. And so the plants are just utilizing whatever is in the soil at the time. And that's why we're seeing that even organic foods, if they're grown on the same soils, it takes a while for them to get back to normal. So you have to be careful, but it is very difficult to get really good nutritious foods right now.
It really is. From your years of experience, especially with the integrative and the holistic direction as well, how would you answer the simple question? And we hear, a lot of us hear it a lot. Well, Dr. Harper, I eat well, I eat clean, and so why should I, take Zaleva?
When I was going to medical school, we were taught that if your patients come in and they're taking supplements, vitamins, minerals, herbal products, whatever, just tell them that they have the most expensive urine in the world. Okay. Yeah. That's what we were taught. And we were told that we have the very best diet anywhere in the world. Well, anybody who's dealt with complementary or integrative medicine knows that's not true. And so the American Medical Association, it wasn't that, it was JAMA. Oh, I can't remember which magazine it was now, about 20 years ago, came out and finally stated, you know what, maybe we need to start adding some vitamins to our diet. And that was a big pill, quote, for them to swallow, because they've been teaching all these other things for so long. Our diets are horrible in this country. They're absolutely horrible. If you look at the food pyramid, it's all upside down. For the last 30 years, they've been pushing carbohydrates, small amounts of protein, small amounts of fats, lots and lots of carbohydrates. Why do you think that the people that produce food like carbohydrates?
Economics.
Because they're addicting. They're
addicting, and they have an unbelievable shelf life. Delicious. They can make carbohydrates into almost anything, and it will just last a long time, as opposed to fats and proteins that don't tend to last nearly as long. So the food industry loves carbohydrates. Now, whether they had anything to do with the pyramid, I don't know, but it's clearly been upside down. We need to be reducing our carbohydrates. All you have to do is go to the CDC, and they have a map of people getting fat over the last 30 years, which is unbelievable. I wished I had that right now to show it to you, but it shows the unbelievable amount of people becoming obese over a very short period of time because they're following this upside down pyramid.
Yeah. We need to reverse many things, don't we, in our society? Yes. And what we're bombarded by. So much of it is all centered around economics versus wellness. We know that. So
before we go any further, I want to say one thing. Just because we all know about this stuff doesn't mean we're all going to be compliant every day. Okay. You can drive yourself crazy with this if you want to. When I go to a movie, guess what I'm having? I'm having a bowl of popcorn and I'm having a Coke. Okay. Yeah. So that's what happens when I go to a movie. It's okay if you do those things. It's just realize you're going to be paying a price. And if you're willing to pay the price, that's okay. But you can't go and do these things if you're not willing to pay the price.
Wow. Great point. And part of that answer is balance as well. Be smart, be sensible, listen. And it goes back to the point we're hopefully driving this home. Listen to your body. Listen to your body. Kathy Horn there had a comment that I think you good, Kathy? You had a comment earlier about, I think it was around carbs.
Oh, I just said they're delicious.
Oh yeah.
Yes, they are.
So good.
French fries, it's just hard to get away from French fries. They just taste so good.
Yes, but that being said, I mean, healthy can taste darn good as well. We know that obviously with this system as well. So yes, they do taste darn good. And part of it, haven't you found through the years, just on a side note, just generally speaking, haven't you found, guys, and Dr. Harper, a healthier body begins to crave healthier food?
After a while, yes, you'll initially go through a little adjustment, obviously, and some people can actually have something called a Herxheimer's reaction, which means your body's not going to feel well. About 3 days into a change in diet, for anywhere from 3 days to about a week, your body is going to not feel very good. Okay. And a lot of people will feel like they've got the flu or symptoms like that. Some are very, very intense, and others are just mild. They don't even have it at all. But it's commonly seen when you change these types of diet to go through these types of reactions. And yes, as you continue to eat it, for example, when I had people on the yeast-free diet, when they would stay away from simple sugars and they were eating vegetables, okay, all of a sudden the vegetables started tasting sweet because they could actually taste the sugars that were in the vegetables. Because before they had gotten used to so much sugar in their diet that the vegetables were not great. Okay. So yes, your body will change and will start, in some instances, craving better nutrition. But at the same time, remember, once an addict, that's right, always an addict.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, this is a beautiful segue into the fifth area of focus that we put all of our marketing and all of our support with Zalevo specifically, because we're doing this, as good, if not better than almost anyone on the planet as far as nutritionally supporting fasting and autophagy, Dr. Harper. So one of my initial questions is, what does healthy and sustainable fasting look like? There's all kinds of fasting, all different types, and some of it's starving the body, some of it's extreme. So I'd love you to answer that question up front.
Well, let's talk about some bad fasts to start with. Obviously, anytime you go beyond a couple of days, your body doesn't like that. Okay. And I've had people that have actually done 3 weeks to a month of just water fasting. Well, that's really scary. It's very dangerous because you can start reducing the nutrients that your body requires to have your heart function correctly. So it's like, this is not a good idea. Now, some people have gotten really good results with that, maybe with arthritis or whatever, but I'm just saying it's not a good idea as far as I'm concerned. We know from the studies that have been done that going beyond 2 days of fasting is not a good idea. We've seen that 1 day is good. We've seen that 2 days is good, but you get beyond 2 days and it's not good, because then your body starts to actually start eating itself. That's not a good thing. Okay. We don't want that to take place. You start losing a lot of muscle mass. And like we talked about before, especially on a prolonged fast, you're going to lower your basal metabolic rate and you're going to end up not being able to produce energy. So it's best a 1 or a 2 day fast. And that's obviously what we're recommending right now.
Exactly. I did a 10-day Candida fast years ago, and I'm lean already. I lost quite a bit of lean muscle. It wasn't a good thing.
Right.
So Dr. Harper, I would love for you to emphasize, a lot of us, even initially, we were really leaned in and compelled by this ideal of autophagy, which is kind of a newer science. It's been around. It's not new. It's been around since we were all created. That being said, about the Nobel Prize back in 2017, et cetera. Can you kind of simplify for us in layman's explanation of what autophagy is and how it applies to our Zalevo system?
Sure. We know that autophagy starts after 24 hours of fasting, okay, of no food. And so what autophagy is, our body has a way of dealing with cells. If we have daughter cells that are damaged to the point where they can't replicate, then what happens, the body actually will kill those cells, which is nice. We love it when cells die, because then we get different cells other than the ones that are just damaged. With autophagy, it's a really interesting concept, because what it shows is it's taking our cells and making them better rather than killing them. Huh. What it does is it takes the thousands and thousands of proteins that are built up inside of a cell, it tears them apart and restructures them to where those cells can then utilize new proteins to stimulate energy production. And so you end up with a much better cell. And we're not just talking in your liver or in your stomach or anything. We're talking throughout your entire body. We've seen mice on autophagy that ended up being mentally more clear. Okay. Well, that's kind of weird. Just quite frankly, that's just kind of weird to think that, wow, we can starve a mouse and he gets smarter. Okay. Well, that's the same thing that applies with us. If we'll do the 2 days where we can get the autophagy going, we can remodel our cells to where they're much more capable of producing energy and as well as reproducing and things like that. And at the same time, we may very well be doing something to help our brains to where we become not as aged.
That's a good compliant way of saying it. Yes, thank you. And so how would you answer the question if somebody asked, well, Dr. Harper, I just saw online that I could do on autophagy fast just drinking water. Why should I look at your system of supporting me through autophagy? How would you answer that question?
I think if they feel that they're doing fine by that, that's okay by me. Once again, it goes back, listen to your body. Me, I personally like to use the burn mode, and I mix it with eVibe because I find that when I fast, I generally don't have enough energy to sometimes take care of the necessities that I want to take care of when I'm doing this. And so I'll mix those two together, not 4 a day, but I'll take probably 2 eVibes along with the burn modes and mix them together so that I can continue to have energy to make myself productive during this period of time when my body's in a remodeling state. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, have the energy, remain highly productive when your body is in this. I love how you tee it up for us, remodeling state. How many of us want to have a remodeled body every 48-hour autophagy fast? All these little carpenters running around remodeling our body. It's a beautiful concept, isn't it? I think so did Dr. Harper answer the question, guys, as far as autophagy, kind of simplifying the terminology? Okay.
Well, the terminology is autodigestion, where you're essentially eating yourself, but it's not exactly that, because even though that's what the words say, that's not what's really taking place. What it's meaning is that you're simply remodeling. So I don't know that the Greeks ever had a remodeling word. I don't know. But autophagy means self-eating. So it's like, yeah, it fits, but it doesn't really fit.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful thing. How many of you on the line, raise your hand or show of hands, have done an autophagy fast? Okay. And how many of you felt and saw something definitely different in a positive way, either during it or after? Yeah. So autophagy works and it's very real. Prior other programs, I would get hangry and moody, and with this experience, I don't. So thankfully. So Dr. Harper, the last area of focus, there's many we could keep going down the path. One we're going to focus on, the 6th one, is a big one. And you've touched on this throughout the other 5 focus points. This one is around sustainable and healthy energy. All right. So, and you also laughed at my leading question again, but I'll ask it again on the pre-brief. How is our body designed to feel? I love how you answered it. Here's the question again. Listen to Dr. Harper's answer to this. I loved, hopefully he can remember. I'm sure he can, because he's on our products. So Dr. Harper, I asked him the question, how is our body designed to feel? How would you answer that simply and succinctly? And here's what he said.
I had to think about this for a minute to make sure that I came up with this the way I wanted to. And all you have to do is look at children. Okay. Children, the mother actually donates a whole bunch of toxins and heavy metals and things like that to the fetus when the fetus is in the womb. But the fetus is born and handles those things very nicely. And why? Because it's got a brand new body that's functioning so well that it doesn't really seem to bother as much as those things tended to bother the mother. So, and when you're looking at a child, what do you have to do? You have to stop them many times. Okay, it's time to take a nap. No, it's time to go to bed. None of them want to do this because they want to keep going and going. It's like they have an endless supply of energy. We should be able to do that as well. But as we grow older and our cells start to age, one of the things that takes place is we start losing that capacity in our mitochondria to produce energy. So that's why the autophagy is so terribly important in regards to trying to get those cells a little bit better remodeled to where they can make more energy. That's a really critical. I mean, how many of you would like more energy? Of course, I would. All of us would like to have more energy. The eVibe is really good also. I really love that eVibe. I'll frequently take eVibe in the morning before I go and work out. And by the way, Exercising is also critical. You really need to be exercising. If you don't maintain your muscle mass, nobody else will for you. So it's important that you maintain that muscle mass and that you keep that on your body, because the older we get, your quality of life will start to go down as your muscle mass goes down. Keep that muscle mass on your body so that you have a good quality of life.
Wow, I love it. So before we kind of begin to tie the call up and summarize this, what are a couple of practical things to avoid that would deter or lower our energy? So what can we avoid, and what should we focus on?
Well, your foods are a critical area here. You want to make sure you're eating clean food, you're drinking clean water, and you're breathing clean air. Now, if we had all three of those things, we probably wouldn't need Zalabo, but we don't have any of those three things right now. So try to get all those things as clean as you possibly can. And with Zalabo, it's nice because they put together a formulation that literally assists our body to try to achieve these types of goals. So that would be what I would be suggesting. What kind of water do I drink? I go to the grocery store, get a 5-gallon, run it through the whatever the thing is. It's a triple filtered reverse osmosis, and I've checked it, and it comes out at about 2 parts per million of water. So that's pretty good water when it's only 2 parts per million. When you get up higher, you get up in the 200s, 500s, 700s. That's not good water, okay, generally. Now, I can't tell you that because some waters are heavily fortified with a lot of minerals, okay, which are good, sometimes good for you. Iron, unfortunately, is not one of those that's really good for you. So it depends on what's in your water. That's why I like to take my minerals from Zalabo so I know what I'm getting, and then I drink good, clean water.
Yeah, clean air, clean water, clean food. I love it. Clean thoughts help. And also, you mentioned one key piece that we have to weave into the end of the call here, guys, is it's called the chili story. And I haven't heard this story yet, but Dr. Harper's wife said you must include the chili story in this call tonight. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Dr. Harper, once again.
My wife's grandmother told me about this story of a woman that was having a garden party. And I guess she was in her kitchen and she was doing her chili recipe that was supposedly famous. Well, her son came in and she said, "Stay away from the chili. This is not for you. This is for my garden party." And she left the kitchen. Well, he got a chair, got up on the chair. All he did, he just wanted to smell the chili, just go, "Oh, that smells so good." So as he bent over, he had some BBs in his pocket and they fell into the chili. So he thought, "I am dead meat." So he just stirred them up real fast, left it, got out of the kitchen as quickly as he could. The next day, one of the women at the garden party called up and said, "Hey, what was in your chili?" And she said, "Oh, would you like the recipe?" And she said, "Well, yeah, it was good chili, but what was in your chili? Because when I bent over to pet the cat, I shot the canary." Ingredients are absolutely critical.
Yeah,
they're critical. And the label gives you good ingredients. You don't have to worry about BBs.
It can lead to the demise of your favorite pets. So be very, very careful.
Ingredients are absolutely critical.
Oh, I love that story. Yeah, we all heard it for the first time. All right, Dr. Harper. Well, I go back to you, Joe. Go ahead.
That was hysterical. I was dying. We were doing like a pre-brief last week with Dr. Harper, and Diane was like, "Oh my gosh, are you going to share that again?" And we're like, "We want to hear it. We haven't heard that." So that was great. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was perfect. I have one last question. I've been listening, but I did Google on my phone because I recently learned what blood type I am, Dr. Harper. And I've always been a meat eater, like always. And I just learned recently that I'm a type A blood type. I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to go vegan? I don't know what to do. So is it really tell me a little bit about that. I'm a little worried.
Okay. I owned a steakhouse when I was growing up and going through college and stuff like that. I'm a type A.
Okay.
What was I eating? I was
Steak.
eating all the leftovers because we were poor. Okay. We ate tons of meat. I felt pretty good on it. Once again, it goes back to how does your body feel? Some
Okay.
people, when they eat meat, they don't feel very good. My wife, she can't eat meat right now for whatever reason. She hasn't been able to for years. Me, my body still tells me it's time to have a really good steak. And I
Yeah.
don't deny that. Okay. I look forward to taking and eating that. Now, it's not that I eat a lot of meat because I found out, unfortunately, a lot of the meats are contaminated with well, corn for one, because the way they fatten up a cow is they put them in and feed them corn, and corn increases the fat composition in there. So you get a choice or a prime cut of beef. And the more fat there is, the more it becomes a prime cut. And I always used to sell prime beef in my restaurant, and it tastes wonderful. But the problem with prime beef is it also increases inflammation.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of arachidonic acid in that, and also estrogen, because they feed the cows estrogen. Why do they feed them estrogen?
To make
Every
them-
woman
yeah.
knows that when your estrogen levels are up, what happens to your body?
We balloon up.
That's exactly right. You end up holding on to water. Well, guess what? Water's cheap, and yet they can sell the cow for more because it's just loaded up on water. So
Oh,
unfortunately, a lot of that meat, when it's not organically produced, has the estrogens as well as the arachidonic acid. So grass-fed beef, yeah, that's great, but it's not as good as prime as far as tasting.
interesting. Okay. I just know that when I'm craving, so it's always a piece of meat. I'm like, I just crave meat. So I'm like, how could I be an A blood type and crave meat? But that explains it. Okay.
But the guy that came up with that, remember, nothing works for everybody.
Yeah.
Not anything has worked for everybody that I'm aware of. So it's very important. If your body is telling you it's time for a piece of meat, then it's time for a piece of meat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't listen to anything except you don't listen to Dr. Harper. You use me as a reference. Okay. You don't
But
listen to this
maybe-
guy that did the blood type diet. You use
But
that
maybe
as a
I
reference.
should go like eat some garbanzo beans and see if that works too. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't
Garbanzos have
know.
never been my favorite bean, I'll tell you for sure.
Yeah.
But
My-
you just listen to your body.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, Robert, did you have something else?
No, we just saying if you eat garbanzos, make sure you armor the canary. So so I do have a closing question for you, Dr. Harper.
Okay.
And the question is, well, number one of our values is fun, isn't it? With Zalevo. So got to have fun here. Can't take ourselves too seriously. So on a little more serious note, I know we've talked about wellness and health and how to get the most from these beautiful miracles that God made. So I would love for you to, at least in closing, paint us a picture. Yes, we have world-class products. Where is Zalevo, the company, the community, the vehicle? Where do you see us heading over the next decade to 50, 60 plus years? What do you see ahead of us here with this company?
Based on what I have seen with the company, you're looking at integrity as being one of the clearest things that I've noticed with this company. And with integrity, any company will go far as long as they have really good products. Well, we have really good products, and we have a company that is integrous and transparent. I mean, as I've said before, in the previous company that we were with, I didn't know what was in the formulations until they sent them to me. And then even then, I didn't know exactly how much was of everything was in the formulations. But in this company, I have complete transparency. I know every single ingredient that's going in there, and I know how much is going in there. And I can tell you right now, this company does not skimp. If they have to pay more money for something, they'll do it because they want to make sure you are getting not BBs, okay? That you're getting good quality ingredients, because that's the real key. If you start cutting on ingredients, and this is what many companies do, they start cutting on ingredients and then they start having less results. It's very clear. It's happened. I've seen it happen so many times in my medical history where a company came out with a really good product and then they wanted to make more money. So consequently, what they did is they started reducing the quality. So it's just, not something that you're going to see Zalevo do.
I love how the answer tied to vision is integrity, transparency, and the fact that the engine that drives any business is the product or service that we provide. So, Dr. Harper, it's been a pleasure. Jill, I'm going to hand it back to you, but in a moment, I'd love for all of us to chime in here and show some love and thanks to Dr. Harper.
Yes, I love that. And what I even love the most out of all of this is seeing Jim Rhodes' grin on his face, like throughout this entire Zoom call. I'm like, oh, he is just loving this. And I text Kathy Rhodes and she's like, it's because it's Dr. Harper. Like he is just like eating all this up. He's just loving it, right, Jim? And you could say an amen to everything being said, right?
Big amen. Thank you, Dr. Harper. Yes, one of my
pleasure.
heroes. Thank you for being here for us.
That's my pleasure, really and truly.
That's
You
awesome.
know, coming into Zalevo, it was a big leap of faith for me and for so many. And then when Dr. Harper joined, well, when Kirsty came on board, I'm like, okay, this is getting good, right? And then when she came out with these entire, you know, the new formulations we rebranded to Zalevo, then Dr. Harper came on board and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the real deal. Like we've got good stuff here. And then Jim Rhodes comes on board. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is for real, you guys. Here we go. Like buckle up. And it just, Dr. Harper, thank you so much for being here tonight. And just
pleasure.
putting even more belief. I mean, we already have the belief, right, in the products ourselves because of how would they feel in our own bodies. And just thank you for being here to bring to life the science of all that you know. And I love that you have complete transparency of all the things, because this is, I believe this is one of the first times you've had that in a large company like this. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This is the only company.
that is incredible. I love that so much.
That's saying a lot, isn't it, Jill?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's saying
It
everything.
is. This is where the integrity is at. So thank you so much for being here tonight, Dr. Harper and Robert. If you want to stop the recording, and then I'll go over some things for the announcements for this week.
I would love to. Jill has some key announcements, guys. Before we go there, in a moment, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and I'd love for y'all just to shout out love or thank you, whatever, to Dr. Harper, and then we'll shut the recording off. But here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Harper.
Great.
My
Oh,
pleasure.
God, I love it. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Dr. Harper, Jill.
Yay!
Oh,
Oh,
bye.
Donna, woo!
Fabulous.
We love